Fame rarely destroys someone overnight. It starts small. A little applause, a viral moment, VIP access. Suddenly the attention feels normal, then it becomes necessary. Before long, the spotlight isn't a reward anymore. It's the boss making every decision. That's exactly what happened to Salt Bae. One playful sprinkle of salt turned him into a global sensation almost instantly. At first it looked harmless, just a chef having fun, but over time, staying relevant became the real mission. The focus slowly shifted away from cooking skills and toward chasing headlines. The man who once impressed people with techniques started getting talked about for awkward appearances, strange publicity moments, and timing that felt completely off. He didn't build his image overnight. One viral clip made him a worldwide icon, but it was a series of questionable choices that began pulling that image apart. The internet that once treated him like royalty started switching up. Instead of admiration, there were memes. Instead of respect, there were side eyes. Reports of slow business and criticism around his brand began stacking up. That luxury chef aura didn't hit the same anymore. Salt Bae didn't just lose popularity. He ran toward the spotlight again and again, even when it was clearly too hot. And to really understand how a simple salt sprinkle evolved into one of the most talked about image declines in online food culture, you have to rewind. Back before the gold-covered steaks, before the viral celebrity photo ops, before the moments that had people cringing instead of clapping, long before the nickname, there was Nusret Gokce, a school dropout from Turkey with no glam, no flashing cameras, and no VIP sections. Just long shifts and serious focus. He dedicated himself to learning butchery from the ground up, traveling, working exhausting hours, sharpening his craft piece by piece. For years, nobody outside his circle knew his name. He wasn't chasing fame.
Most of the anger was directed at Maduro.
He was chasing skill, and back then, that grind was the only thing that mattered. Eventually, he opened his own steakhouse in Istanbul. It wasn't flashy or world famous at first, but it worked. People came for real food and real skill, not crazy spectacle. Slowly, through hard work and consistency, his reputation began to grow. Not because of memes, but because he knew his craft. About that time, he started filming himself at work, slicing meat, preparing steaks, and posting short clips to social media for a small audience. Nothing about it screamed superstar status. Then in 2017, everything changed. He shared a clip barely 10 seconds long, no talking, no explanation, just slicing meat, flicking his wrist, and theatrically sprinkling salt down his forearm. He had no idea what he had just created. That single gesture exploded across the internet, kicking off memes and parodies everywhere, and the nickname Salt Bae exploded almost overnight. What made it stick wasn't just the move, but it was how instantly recognizable one gesture, one silhouette, one vibe became. Suddenly, Salt Bae wasn't just a chef, he was an online character. The attention felt fun at first. He leaned into it and the world rewarded him. Celebrities began to show up, athletes, actors, big names. Everyone wanted to be part of it. His Istanbul restaurant turned into a hotspot where people lined up just to say they had been there. Getting served by Salt Bae became a status symbol, and expansion followed fast. New restaurants opened in Dubai, Miami, London, Los Angeles, and New York. Every spot followed the same pattern: crazy high-priced steaks, gold leaf desserts, a tiny menu, and maximum spectacles. People weren't just paying for flavor anymore. They were paying to watch the show. Customers dropped thousands of dollars on gold-covered steaks, not because they were tastier.
From critics who noted that as Maduro treats himself to this lavish meal, citizens of his country are going hungry.
People is having a hard time to find food, you know.
But because Salt Bae himself added the final flourish, the experience became the product, and while it worked like a dream, expensive reservations, long lines, and social media feeds flooded with photos of towering steaks and proud captions. Salt Bae had turned a meme into a multi-million-dollar empire. But when your whole brand relies on spectacle, it only takes one tasteless moment to make people start wondering what it was all about in the first place. That moment came in 2018. A controversial public figure from Venezuela visited Salt Bae's restaurant for a private dinner while many people in their country were struggling with severe shortages. Video of the lavish feast spread online and sparked outrage, not just at the visitor, but at the idea of luxury and excess while others faced hardship. It painted Salt Bae not just as a fun meme, but as a symbol of over-the-top luxury at the wrong time. Still, for a while the hype kept rolling, and fans continued to flood his restaurants even as cracks began to show. The criticism didn't slow anything down, and that's the dangerous side of viral fame. When everything keeps working, you start to believe you're untouchable. Fast forward to December 18th, 2022, the FIFA World Cup final in Qatar. Argentina had just won one of the most emotional matches in football history. Players were overwhelmed. Fans were in tears. The entire planet was celebrating. Then Salt Bae stepped onto the pitch. How he even got access was already raising eyebrows. But what happened next turned celebration into controversy. Instead of staying in the background, he inserted himself into the moment. Cameras caught him approaching players for selfies, holding onto them longer than they seemed comfortable with, and even posing with their medals. The situation escalated when he reached for the World Cup trophy itself, an honor traditionally reserved for the winning team and officials. He held it, he kissed it, and the reaction online was immediate. Clips spread everywhere. Viewers pointed out the awkward body language. Fans felt the focus had shifted away from the athletes who had just achieved something historic. What should have been Argentina's unforgettable night suddenly became a viral compilation of uncomfortable interactions. Football supporters accused him of hijacking a sacred moment just to stay relevant. The internet wasn't amused, it was embarrassed. Later, he said he was simply excited and unaware of certain boundaries, but the damage had already been done. FIFA reportedly reviewed how access was granted, and not long after, he was excluded from future tournament events. That moment wasn't just another meme, it marked a turning point. For many, it confirmed that the line between brand building and attention chasing had completely blurred. But the issues didn't start in Qatar. Behind the viral moments and gold-covered steaks, cracks had been forming for years. The headlines focused on awkward clips, but the deeper problems were unfolding quietly behind restaurant doors. Former employees began speaking out. Accounts described long shifts, intense pressure, and management styles that some called intimidating. One non-Turkish manager claimed he felt sidelined compared to others. He said when he raised concerns about workplace treatment, he was later demoted. That allegation alone raised questions about internal culture. Several former female staff members shared their experiences as well. One said she was required to wear outfits she felt were inappropriate for a restaurant setting. Another claimed that when she reported uncomfortable behavior from a customer, she felt her concerns weren't taken seriously. These stories painted a picture that didn't match the polished social media image. Words like ego and control began popping up more frequently in discussions. There were also claims from workers about passport handling policies, which sparked even more debate online. Allegations like that shift public opinion quickly, whether fully proven or disputed. Once they enter the conversation, perception changes, and perception is
like kind of this sort of ceaseless self-promotion of this guy. And look, you're a successful businessman, what you do works, but like, this is their moment. It's not
everything when your brand is built on image. Then came legal action. Several grill chefs filed a case alleging unpaid overtime after reportedly working extreme hours. They also claimed a percentage of their tips had been withheld. In court, compensation was awarded in the range of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Shortly after the ruling, those employees were reportedly dismissed due to performance concerns. The timing didn't go unnoticed. By this point, it wasn't just staff speaking up. Customers were questioning things too. For years, the outrageous prices were part of the appeal. Spending thousands on dinner wasn't about flavor alone. It was about flexing, but that vibe shifted when a customer receipt was posted publicly with the caption suggesting that quality is never expensive. Instead of admiration, it triggered scrutiny. People began breaking down the numbers. Gold leaf, widely available and relatively inexpensive in bulk, was being used as a luxury symbol. Beverage prices raised eyebrows. High markups became talking points. Online reviewers started asking what exactly justified the cost. Once social media shifted from hype to analysis, the magic felt thinner. Reviews became harsher. Ratings dropped. Some diners described the experience as average despite the price tag. One London location even landed near the bottom of local rankings at one point. The same spectacle that once drove demand was now being mocked. And if reputational damage wasn't enough, there had been an earlier incident that carried more serious consequences. In 2018, during a dramatic tableside fire presentation designed to impress guests, flames reportedly got out of control. Several customers were injured. What was meant to be theater turned into a safety concern. Incidents like that don't disappear easily. By now, the pattern was clear. Viral fame had created momentum. Momentum built expansion.
Touch the World Cup and kiss the World Cup. What were you thinking?
You know, I love Argentina. I love football. And this is the accident. Before I don't know the rules. Now I know the rules. Next World Cup, I never touch the World Cup. I go to, of course, stadium, see the match, but I never touch.
Expansion magnified mistakes, and once scrutiny intensified, every flashy decision from the past was re-examined under a harsher light. The salt sprinkle that once symbolized effortless cool had evolved into something else entirely. A case study in how spectacle can overpower substance when boundaries fade. One of the most serious incidents involved a young model who suffered severe third-degree burns over a large portion of her body during a restaurant fire performance. This wasn't a minor mistake, it was life-altering harm that led to legal action and intense public scrutiny. Lawsuits followed, not only from injured guests, but also from employees who said they had reached their breaking point with the workplace environment. In total, around 8 legal cases were linked to different locations. By then, the public image had completely shifted. He wasn't seen as the cool viral chef anymore. He wasn't the internet's golden icon. Online, the narrative was changing. Words like greed, ego, and poor management started replacing admiration, and in 2020, another controversy added more pressure. A customer named Dwayne Miranda claimed his order had been upgraded to a gold-covered version without clear consent. What he believed was a standard tomahawk steak reportedly turned into a far more expensive version, adding thousands to the bill. When the check arrived, around $5,000, he said he hadn't been properly informed about the price jump. When he refused to pay, authorities were contacted. The bill was eventually settled, but the story went public and spread fast. That moment hurt the brand in a different way. It wasn't about spectacle or awkward timing. It was about trust. People began asking tougher questions about pricing transparency. Celebrities who once lined up for photos slowly stopped posting those glowing restaurant shots.
FIFA has opened an investigation into a security and protocol breach at the end of the World Cup final in Qatar. This after celebrity chef Salt Bae was filmed harassing players from the victorious Argentine team, including...
The gold steaks stopped trending like they used to. The magic wasn't magical anymore. When you zoom out, the pattern becomes clearer. The pitch invasion at the football final, the viral backlash, the lawsuits, the pricing disputes. It didn't look random. It looked like someone trying to stay in the spotlight while the foundation underneath was cracking. By 2025, online criticism had grown louder, and reports suggested some locations were struggling financially. In London, stories surfaced that heating was reportedly turned down during peak hours to reduce costs. A surprising move for a brand built entirely on luxury. Then came something no one expected. Prices were lowered. The same brand that once leaned hard into ultra-premium positioning suddenly began adjusting its pricing structure. It was a dramatic shift from the earlier message that high cost equals high value, but cutting prices doesn't automatically fix perception. In luxury, price is part of the identity. Once that changes, the illusion shifts too. Even after adjustments, many still felt the experience didn't justify the cost. Some locations that once had long waiting lists reportedly struggled to fill seats consistently. In the United States, the number of restaurants reportedly dropped significantly within a short time. Expansion slowed, momentum cooled. The viral meme alone wasn't enough to keep everything running at the same speed. For years, what was being sold wasn't just steak. It was exclusivity. It was access. It was the idea that sitting at that table meant you were part of something elite. Gold leaf became a symbol, not an ingredient. The sprinkle became theater, not seasoning. But once customers stopped believing in that idea, the entire business model felt different. Price reductions didn't feel strategic to critics. They felt reactive. And once people sense reaction instead of confidence, questions multiply. Was the food ever truly the focus? Was the luxury always justified? Was the hype bigger than the substance? Even with revised pricing, some diners still described the experience as underwhelming. The sprinkle that once felt iconic began to feel repetitive. Spectacle without novelty loses its power quickly, and when the buzz fades, what remains is reputation. Chefs and critics increasingly focused on craft and innovation in the wider industry. Meanwhile, Salt Bae's public identity had shifted toward controversy headlines rather than culinary achievement. He wasn't being discussed for technique or creativity. He was being discussed for viral missteps and high-profile moments that didn't land well. And that's the part that makes this story complicated, because he didn't start as a caricature. He started as a disciplined butcher who worked hard, traveled, learned, and built skill over time. His early years were defined by effort, not ego. But once the internet transformed him into a global meme, the brand overtook the craft. Attention can feel addictive. When visibility becomes your identity, stepping back feels impossible. So the appearances grew louder, the stunts became bigger, the entrances more dramatic, and when attention naturally slowed, the instinct seemed to be to push even harder. That's often how viral fame works. It rewards escalation, but escalation has limits. Once the audience senses desperation instead of confidence, the tone changes. Instead of admiration, there's eye rolling. Instead of hype, there's fatigue. The salt sprinkle that once symbolized effortless cool became associated with chasing headlines. The exclusivity that once felt aspirational began to feel forced. And when respect fades, rebuilding it is far harder than gaining it in the first place. In the end, this wasn't just about steak prices or viral clips. It was about identity. A chef who built
that this is some absolute clown behavior. I never think it's a good idea to try and make one thing your entire identity. Whether it's a meme, whether it's you just being a fan of something, I always think that that's always just going to be a path to cringe. Just imagine getting a huge ego because you sprinkle salt down your arm on overpriced steak.
Gil slowly became a character built on spectacle, and when the spectacle outpaced the substance, the balance tipped. Fame didn't vanish overnight. It faded through a series of moments that stacked up. Each controversy chipped away at the aura. Each awkward headline shifted perception a little more, until one day the meme wasn't enough to carry the empire anymore. That's the risk when attention becomes the product. Once people stop clapping, you have to stand on something stronger than a gesture. And when that foundation feels shaky, even gold leaf can't hold it together. That's why he kept reaching for the same gesture long after it stopped feeling fresh. The sprinkle that once looked smooth, effortless, and iconic slowly lost its magic. Years ago, that move felt original. It felt playful. It felt like confidence. But over time, it stopped being creativity and started becoming a crutch. Instead of evolving beyond the meme, he kept circling back to it like it was the only thing holding the whole empire together. At first, people laughed with him, then they laughed at him. That shift is subtle, but once it happens, it's brutal. The same motion that once made him a global sensation started to feel forced. The same slow wrist flick that once symbolized swagger started to look repetitive. And the more he repeated it, the more obvious it became that the brand had stopped growing. By the end, Salt Bae wasn't steering the narrative anymore. The narrative was steering him. When you become a meme, you either expand beyond it or you get trapped inside it. And once you're trapped, there's no clean way out. Every appearance becomes about feeding the character. Every public moment feels like a performance. Even silence becomes risky because the internet moves on fast. Today, he isn't remembered as a chef who revolutionized steak. Culture worldwide. He isn't commonly discussed for building a long-term culinary legacy or reshaping fine dining standards. Instead, the image that sticks in people's minds is simpler. The viral guy with sunglasses sprinkling salt. That's the snapshot history chose to keep, and that says a lot about internet fame. Viral moments feel powerful. They explode. They dominate feeds. They turn unknown names into global brands overnight, but they're rented, not owned. Attention online is temporary. It doesn't automatically convert into respect. It doesn't guarantee longevity. It only creates a window of opportunity. What you build during that window determines whether you last. For a while, Salt Bae looked unstoppable. Expansion across major cities, celebrity guests, viral clips stacking up, lines outside restaurants. It felt like a blueprint for modern success. Take a meme, amplify it, monetize it, repeat. But hype is momentum based. It requires constant fuel, and when that fuel is spectacle instead of substance, burnout happens fast. The issue wasn't that he went viral. That was a gift. The issue was that the brand leaned almost entirely into the performance side of the identity. Gold leaf steaks, flashy table shows, over-the-top presentation, high-profile guest appearances. Everything screamed exclusivity, but exclusivity only works when people believe it's backed by something solid. Once criticism started stacking up, but whether it was pricing debates, legal issues, viral missteps, or public backlash, Backlash, the shine began to dull. The illusion of invincibility cracked, and when customers start questioning value instead of celebrating experience, the energy shifts quickly. Luxury is built on perception. If perception weakens, so does the premium. When prices were adjusted, it wasn't just a business move. It signaled that the original positioning might not have been as untouchable as it once seemed. In high-end branding, price stability equals confidence. Once you slash numbers publicly, people start asking deeper questions. Was the value always there? Was the spectacle masking something thinner underneath? Even beyond business decisions, there's a deeper lesson here about identity. Early in his journey, Nusret Gokce was known for discipline. He traveled to learn, he worked long shifts, he focused on butchery technique. That foundation was real. That part of the story often gets overshadowed by the sunglasses and memes. But once the internet turned him into Salt Bae, the character grew larger than the chef. The performance became the product, and when your identity becomes a character, you feel pressure to keep performing, even when the audience starts yawning. That pressure leads to escalation, bigger entrances, louder stunts, more high-profile appearances. But escalation has limits. At some point, audiences crave authenticity again. They want substance. They want evolution. If they don't see it, they disengage. And that disengagement hurts more than criticism. Criticism at least means people are still paying attention. Indifference is the real endgame of viral culture. When the meme stops trending, when the sprinkle stops surprising, when the gold leaf stops shocking, silence creeps in. Salt Bae's story isn't just about ego or arrogance, it's about imbalance. Relevance became louder than respect. Visibility became more important than craft. The chase for headlines started to overshadow the plate itself, and once that balance tilts too far, recovery becomes difficult. Internet fame rewards boldness, but it also punishes stagnation. If you don't grow, you get looped into your own highlight reel. Audiences replay the same clip while waiting for something new. If nothing comes, the replay turns into parody. That's what makes this story feel almost symbolic. A man who once represented cool confidence ended up representing overexposure. A gesture that once felt iconic ended up feeling overused. A luxury empire that once looked unstoppable faced shrinking demand and louder skepticism. But here's the thing. None of this erases where he started. He didn't begin as a caricature. He began as a craftsman. The early years were built on discipline and ambition. The success wasn't fake. It just became unbalanced. Going viral can open doors. Staying grounded keeps them open. The internet doesn't owe anyone longevity. It rewards what's new, what's bold, what's shocking, but it respects consistency, evolution, and humility. The creators who last are the ones who use viral moments as stepping stones, not permanent stages. Salt Bae rode the wave higher than almost anyone could have predicted, but waves eventually crash, and if you build your identity entirely on the crest, you feel the fall harder than most. So was he a victim of internet culture's short attention span? Or did his own decisions gradually chip away at the foundation he built? Was the sprinkle genius branding that simply ran its course? Or was it the beginning of an overexposed character that couldn't evolve? There's no simple answer. Fame magnifies both strengths and flaws. It rewards confidence but exposes ego. It amplifies success but highlights every mistake. And once millions are watching, every move carries weight. What's undeniable is this: viral fame is borrowed time. It's loud, it's fast, it feels permanent while it's happening, but unless it's backed by growth, discipline, and reinvention, it fades. Salt Bae's rise was dramatic, his challenges were public, and his story stands as a reminder that spectacle alone can't sustain legacy. Respect lasts longer than hype, craft lasts longer than character, and attention, once lost, is harder to win back than it was to gain in the first place. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Salt Bae was simply a product of a fast-moving internet cycle? Or did the constant chase for attention slowly unravel everything he built? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to see where you stand. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and share it with someone who remembers when the salt sprinkle first took over the internet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.